Hello, everyone. So there was a Democratic debate on Tuesday. Really not all that eventful, except for the Bernie and Warren scandal, as the video is obviously entitled. So, I mean, yeah, just to touch on the debate though briefly, like Pete Buttigieg is a really slick talker who can seriously avoid answering questions like I've never seen before. Just baffling. Like he like almost always he uses an anecdote every time. I feel like, and he just is able to. I think his opening statement. He was asked why are you the best person suited for president, and he's like, I don't know. I have different experience. Okay, it's fine. Um, Yeah, I mean, there was really not much else to point out. I mean, Joe Biden had a okay night, which is all he basically had to do. He just had to not flop, and there were not really any major flops with him. It's just basically every other sentence with him is some kind of stutter or stroking out on something. But that's par for the course with him. So it's just like he was able to kind of breeze on by. Um, Everyone else faded into the background in my view. I don't think there was not there's Klobuchar. This is ridiculous. I mean, the fact that she's even gotten this far, to be honest. Steyer just bought his way on stage, and I mean he has good policies, so it's like I can make fun of him all I want for being a billionaire, but his policies are good, and I like what he has to say. But at the same time, yeah, it's like I don't think anyone knows about you, dude. So I just don't really think you have a real shot there. But and so yeah, I mean that was basically it. So there was a little bit of a preamble though to the debate because there was this controversy about, but well, between Bernie and Warren. So it started out with like the script that Bernie volunteers were supposedly using for canvassing, and the script said that Warren is struggling to bring a more diverse class of voters, that her supporters are mostly rich college educated types and people who vote Democratic anyways. Now, if you've ever canvassed before, and people have pointed this out, you don't hardly ever use negative talking points against a specific candidate. That's pretty just against that profession. It really you because the whole thing with that is you don't want to be perceived as basically just trying to trash anyone. It's got to be all positive things. So you're trying to sell really the vision of your candidate. So it's not really about tearing any one other person down. It's got to be a positive thing. So using negative talking points like that is very unusual for canvassing situations, and so people have pointed out was this even a real thing that Bernie volunteers were using? But the thing is, assuming that they even were using that script, I mean, it's factual. That is true about Warren supporters. They are mostly richer college educated types, people in higher education like teachers. Um, Bernie has the most diverse coalition. I mean, this is it's not as if he's lying. If they even were saying that, the Bernie volunteers. So it's I don't have a huge problem with it, even if they were doing that. But I would raise the suspicion that it seems like this kind of was fabricated. It could have been fabricated, or maybe it was an unofficial script that wasn't sanctioned through the Bernie campaign. It's you got to really dig into those details, and so that's the problem with these scandals now with Bernie and Warren, is that there's not a lot of details to really go on. It's just really, yeah, it seems like campaigns doing oppo research on each other, and it's a he said she said type situation. So with that, it escalated further. I think it was the day before the debate that this story leaked, where Warren herself confirms that Bernie and her had a private conversation in December 2018. So the private conversation happened. That there were four people like on each person's team there. So she says in this conversation that she said a woman could become president, and she said that Bernie disagreed. So, first of all, it seems to me, just going off that there's a lot of context missing from Bernie's comment. And to be fair now, I'm just speculating. No one knows what was actually said in that room. Um, maybe we'll find out. I don't know. Maybe there was a recording. Maybe there was some kind of transcript, and we'll find out. But I, my gut instinct tells me that this is not. It's out of character for Bernie. So he said going back to the late '80s that a woman could become president. He said he was in a room full of kids talking to him and saying like women should be involved in politics but not, and they are, but not at the rate that they should be involved. In 2015 he tried to draft Elizabeth Warren to run against Hillary Clinton, and I didn't even know that, to be honest. Like he tried to get Warren to run before Bernie actually ran in 2016. So it's one of those things where it's just like they're trying to get us to believe this certain narrative, and I don't think it's sticking because it doesn't really make much sense. Especially in the lens of Bernie probably said something, and people from his team have said that what he said was Trump would weaponize anything he could use. I think they may have thrown in the word like nefarious, like meaning like it's not going to be a fair attack. I mean, this is sexism and misogyny we're talking about. So Trump has been known to use that, obviously. So I think all that Bernie was saying was that is an obstacle for women candidates to overcome, and I think it's like Trump is going to weaponize that, so you have to be careful with that. So he's not saying a woman can't win. And the thing is, Joe Biden was out there saying that Hillary Clinton lost to sexism, but because of sexism, and I'm not going to have that problem. Joe Biden said, I'm not going to have that problem in public. And so Warren's not going to call him out for that, but she's going to bring up this private conversation with Bernie at a time where he's rising in the polls. It's, like a week or 2 weeks, I guess, before the Iowa caucus. So this is starting to get to that point where it's like there's too many factors kind of lining up to suggest that this was a little bit staged. This whole thing. I'm gonna go on. I'm gonna put it all out there and just say I think this was probably all staged, in the sense that the story was leaked by the Warren campaign. And we'll get to the confrontation at the end of the debate in a second. But the questioning of Bernie at the debate on this topic, and then when she later confronted him, I think this has probably all been kind of part of the plan. And look, I know people are gonna be like, well, you can't say that about Warren. That's like she's so mean and she's so whatever. I don't know. Like, look. When you're running a campaign and you want to win, I mean, like this is down to the line now, and this is the last debate before the caucus, so it's like it shouldn't be all that surprising that you would try and pull a move like this, because you're going to do anything in your power to try and win, and all this unity garbage is complete. It's a lie. I've stipulated this 1,000 times. I agree with lesser evilism. I understand why that logically makes sense. But Warren can't go out there now saying she's the unity candidate or she's some kind of compromise candidate when she's, just trashing Bernie like this and stabbing him in the back, essentially. And the thing is, look, this is not a policy difference. Like again, I don't know what Bernie said, but I highly doubt that he said the worst interpretation of what they're saying happened. the worst interpretation is he just flat said a woman cannot be president. So that would be bad if he did say that, which, it's like I feel like I'm being way too generous in trying to entertain this. This is ridiculous. But if that was actually what he said, that's not a policy difference, really. So I care about what are the policies that are going to be implemented. I'm sorry, yeah, that's what I care about the most. So I understand like the whole argument about like electability, and in terms of if you have like a scandal like that floating over you, then it could be a problem. I think the difference with Bernie is that he just bats all this stuff aside. Like he's so good at that because he just is laser focused on policy. So okay, I'm getting a little off track here. um, so so she confirmed herself all this. Yes, I know all this. I read all that. Yeah, it's based on innuendo. Warren's not elaborating. This is, she said basically what I said, that she said a woman could be president and he disagreed. But that's all that we know. That's all that we know that was said, apparently. She's like, I'm not going to go and try and trash Bernie and all this. But then you're going to confront him like at the end of the debate. So it's like, what is the difference? It's just, so again, just to reiterate, it's different to point out that misogyny and sexism is a problem in this country. There's a difference between that and saying a woman just can't be president. So, knowing that, you have to basically choose between what did Bernie say, between the latter and the former things that I just said. So, if you're going to really go on this bandwagon and try and say like the harshest interpretation is what he said, I think no, you're being really silly. So stop. And like I'm saying, she doesn't want to elaborate. She doesn't want to make specific allegations against what Bernie supposedly said, because this attack is backfiring. I think if she keeps pushing this narrative and smear, essentially is what it is, it's going to be even worse for her, because she sees that hashtag Never Warren is trending on social media. She also sees there's like all these snake emojis, everyone's calling her a snake, all that. So she's smart and knows, I think, that she stumbled into like a minefield, and yeah, I wonder about where this all started. I would tend to say, I mean, like, I have some respect for Warren, to be honest. I mean, like, I'm losing it a little more each day. It's just whittling down to nothing with me and Warren at this point. It's like basically like very, very small now. I mean, it's because this is really unfair what she did to Bernie, in my view. But the point being, what was I gonna say? She knows that she stumbled into this controversy, and that it's backfired on her. So she doesn't want to alienate Bernie voters even more than she already has. So she's really kind of split the party. No, I was going to say, did it start with her staff or did it start with her? So did her staff do this move, and then Warren just kind of has to deal with the fallout of it happening? I don't know. I just know that basically, if you the choices are Bernie said this thing that everyone's so crazy about beyond any sense of reason, or the Warren campaign misinterpreted what Bernie said, purposefully or not. I would tend to say that Warren knew what he was talking about. I mean, she's a smart person. I don't think she thought that he really thinks a woman can't be president. So I think she probably just took that conversation like she knew he had said something close enough to that she could use that as an attack. But again, it's like I don't blame Bernie, because here's another thing. Like I the reason I mentioned Joe Biden saying what he said in public is because that's damaging. That affects the discourse, and this is now affecting the discourse. And Bernie was saying what he said to Warren in a private conversation. So what you choose to say in public matters, and how because these things can get weaponized. Misogyny, having that at the forefront of people's minds, like this was a big problem in 2016, and now Warren wants to put that at the forefront of everyone's mind if she were the nominee. So, you know, whether it was the staff or her, it's not an excuse for Warren, because she has to show that she has good judgment, and this was not a smart move. I really don't see how anyone could think this was a smart move unless you're like, down the line a Warren supporter. But you know, if you're not showing that strong leadership skill with even running the campaign, then yeah, I don't think I can trust you to run the country. Then I mean, that should make sense. So let's get to Warren refusing to shake Bernie's hand. So the audio leaked, and she approached him and just took her hand back and was like, "I think you called me a liar on national TV." And Bernie either couldn't hear or was flabbergasted or both, and was like, "What?" And so she repeated herself. I think you called me a liar on national TV, and he basically just said like, "Let's not have this discussion right now. Let's do another time." Bernie said, "You called me a liar," and I'm not exactly sure what that was in reference to. But I mean, it could be, I guess, because there was videos of him saying a woman, should become president, can become president. So that is a little bit calling him a liar. But and Tom Steyer freaking awkwardly interrupting that moment was just glorious. But yeah, I really felt bad for Bernie in that moment. Like the more I rewatched that video, he's just it's so sad, honestly, because like she thought, or he thought that she was a good friend, and like I don't think I think that he thought it was just some misunderstanding, and that's the thing is like Bernie, I feel like, sees the good intentions in people, and like he shouldn't. He's a little bit naive in that sense. Like he assumes the good in people when really there's a lot of people out to get him all the time. So yeah, I think he seemed really shocked by that confrontation, and so hopefully he's gonna realize now that this is that they're on the freaking offense. They're gonna just and that's the thing is like I don't know if they're gonna continue with this narrative. It seems like it'd be too toxic for them. It's just gonna make people hate them even more. So I really don't see why they would keep pursuing this. But let's say they did. I mean, yeah, like Bernie, it's so sad because now we're just not even having the conversation about policy anymore. It's like this is the top news story, and it's a big issue, and it only emboldens Biden. Because think about it. Because if you're gonna polarize the Warren and Bernie voters, and you have like people that are very stridently Bernie, very stridently Warren now. Well, first of all, from Warren's perspective, it just she's not convincing anyone from Bernie to switch over to her. So, like, the Bernie camp is very emboldened, and the Warren camp is emboldened in their own way. But it's like there's going to be no crossover. So they're going to split the vote more, is what I'm trying to get at, and so that only helps Biden. Um, so we've seen that Bernie is rising now, so that's a good thing. But one quick thing, my final point is just people should not believe the gaslighting on this issue, because even more so than the facts itself, like the way CNN presents this is so beyond the pale biased. How could you not see that it's biased? They asked this question to Bernie, and the moderator is like, "So just to be clear, you didn't tell Elizabeth Warren that a woman couldn't be president." And he's like, "That's correct. I didn't say that." And she switches right over to Warren and is like, "What did you think when Senator Sanders said that a woman couldn't be president?" So like, you're not even listening to him, and and even if you want to make an optics critique, if you want to say, okay, CNN, like you should be a little, at least appear to be more objective than that, then you could say like the way they should have done it is, sorry, just to be clear, Senator Sanders, you did not say a woman could not be president. That's correct. Elizabeth Warren, is it true that he said that, or something to that effect? Put it into the form of a question, because like the way that they did that, it was as if they're just like dismissing what Bernie said as a lie, like right out, and it's like, oh nope, this is the framing we're sticking with. Like no, and when they later reported on it, they were framing it as if Warren's response was trying to like like be the compromise moment, like trying to rein the crowd in, is what they were trying to say. What? And I mean, I'm sorry, yeah. Like Secular Talk pointed this out. Like she's giving this answer about how like women have like the women on stage have won all their elections. Like women can win. No one has said that a woman can't win. Okay, and Bernie kind of like brushed that moment aside too, because he was like, actually, I beat a Republican in 1990, and Elizabeth Warren's like, like that 30 years ago. And then Bernie's like, well, actually, 1990 is 30 years ago. So I think he had a lot of great moments. I think a lot of people seem to agree that he performed well in the debate too. So I'm feeling good about his chances, but you shouldn't take that for granted. You gotta really put in the work, unfortunately, in this system, because it's not just a democracy. It's really not. It's based on who has the most money. So, and all the tomfoolery going on at the DNC and primary rigging. Who knows what's going to happen? So, you know, yeah. Just my final point is just like they're trying to tell people like, don't believe your lying eyes with this Bernie thing. It's like, of course Bernie didn't say this. I really don't get how anyone could believe this after all the circumstantial evidence around that, all the videos and stuff of him. It's just, it's amazing. So, Warren going forward can actually try and quote what Bernie says, or just try and abandon this whole attack. Like she's trying to have it both ways. She's trying to say, well, Bernie didn't agree with me, but I'm not going to say specifically what he said. All I said was a woman could be president, and he disagreed. But you're not adding enough context to that to that situation there, because again, he could be talking about the effects of misogyny on the country and sexism. So that's not enough. And as far as Bernie goes, I thought again his response to the CNN question was good. It was they're clearly against Bernie. I mean, the person asking the question was a former Hillary campaign member. I remember reading like she was on the campaign somehow, but I think he needs a little bit of a better response in the future. He's got to get ahead of Warren on this, I think, and just say specifically what he said. And again, it's like it's going to be what we all expect it to be. It's going to be there's misogyny and sexism in the country, okay? All I was saying is that Trump is a bad guy. He's going to use a lot of things. That's what he's going to do. And yeah, like getting ahead of Warren on this, I think will be much better, because then it's going to just become like she's going to put words in his mouth, and it's really unfortunate that she did this move, because I think it's just gutter politics. It's like she doesn't really care the outcome of her relationship with Bernie. It seems to me like this is just very careerist and just trying to skip the line in front of Bernie, and so we'll see what happens with the primaries and the caucuses. But the numbers show that Bernie is surging. So, but we got to be more involved than ever. So donate if you can. Phone bank, Canvas. I'm going to be doing at least one of those things, because this is really the moment to be involved now, is right when things are starting, and Bernie the numbers show that he's surging and he's gaining a lot of popularity. Yeah, I think it was something like he raised 4 million just after the debate night, and there was a certain number of new donors. So, you know, I'm cheering on Bernie, and we got to be out there showing our support and showing that we're with him on that fight.